All right, this is Dave Barker, and we're going to talk about interviewing now. Now, interviewing, certainly not my forte. I've worked with 60 Minutes folks a lot. I have friends who are producers, and I've known some of the correspondents. Not me. I'm this guy. Done. Let's move on. Let me give you some examples of the kind of interviewer I am. This was a live example, actually, with an astronaut, Steve Robinson. Steve probably has the most famous right hand in NASA history. I don't know if you remember a few years back, this was the first in-space shuttle repair. They had seen a piece of gap filler, which is between the big carbon tiles, the tens of thousands of tiles underneath the shuttle that allowed it to stay intact when it landed. But there was this thing between one of the tiles, so they kind of ad-libbed, and Steve went out on an EVA or a spacewalk, and he plucked that thing out. And it was all done on live TV, and that was cool. But this was, I believe, the next flight after his, and I kind of used him to talk about this flight, because when you're covering NASA, there's a lot of delays and all of that. You do a lot of vamping, and so you got to grab somebody like Steve. Take a look at this.
That it's common to have phone come off. It's probably come off on every mission, right? It seems like more of a problem probably recently because we have more cameras up there, right?
Right. We know much more than we knew before. Even though, for instance, in yesterday's case, that was a very small piece. Nobody thought that was going to be a big problem. But by doing the analysis, by pulling together all the intellect that we have to look at it, we all get smarter for the next case.
Now, I know they're calling these test missions, but really every flight of the shuttle is a test mission. There's only been, 114. And if you think about the history of aviation, 114 flights of any aircraft is probably still in the test stage.
Yeah, look at the X-15, one of the greatest experimental test planes ever built. It had 199 missions.
All right, Steve Robinson again, and that's what's happening right now at the Kennedy Space Center. We'll go back to you in New York.
By the way, I have a little secret here. You never know who you're going to get on launch days at NASA until right before you get them, so there was really no way to prepare for that interview. However, before I went to bed the night before, I read an article on test flights. I just made sure I remembered the main parts of it and worked it in with Steve. So, a little preparation and an understanding interviewee can really make your job a lot easier. Astronauts are amazing. Steve was amazing. I knew very little about that world. When I was at Moorhead State University, I took astronomy and geology, not because I couldn't handle biology and chemistry. So when it came to science, I wasn't great. So I love covering NASA, did pretty well, but I always grab people like Steve, all right? And tell him, treat me like a child. I don't know anything about this, Steve. And they love to help you. Okay, so remember that. All right, next, we're gonna go to 9/11 right now. In fact, ironically, the guy behind the camera shooting this right now, that's Steve Miller over here, and I, we're there on 9/11. In fact, we were, I think, among the first crews back into the pit of Ground Zero that afternoon, probably around 1:30 that afternoon. So a lot of reporters grabbing people and talking for 15 minutes. And to me, that's just ridiculous. So here was kind of a typical interview that we did around Ground Zero on 9/11.
Okay, you saw it this morning.
Yes, I did.
Tell me what happened.
What I saw was standing on 7th Avenue, a jetliner that apparently was suffering from some sort of distress, heading on a southerly course, but way too low for what we're used to. It looked like it was a 737 sized jet, and it headed straight into the northern tower, the two big towers. It was the northern tower and ran right to the side. I'd say about 75, 80 stories up. And at first we assumed it was some sort of a horrible accident until secondary explosions and secondary collisions started happening, and then we knew something else was going on.
Are you from New York?
Born and raised, yeah. I watched those two towers get built.
How does this affect your heart?
I'm not sure yet. It's hard. Ask me.
I think all of our interviews that day were less than a minute. I mean, why would you interview people more when you get stuff like that? Everybody was like this that day. I'll never forget the eyes, cops, iron workers, people that had been through it, came back, people trying to help other people. Everybody had the same look. Why just keep? All you would do is turning into browbeating somebody. So just do what you can and get out of those interviews, all right? All right, let me show you a story now. I got an exclusive interview with a guy named Cat Stevens. His name is now Yusuf Islam.
Now I've been happy lately, thinking about good things to come.
Back in the 70s, he was like Justin Bieber and Katy Perry, kind of rolled into one. He was big back then. All of a sudden, he disappeared. He disappeared for 30 years. But I got an exclusive interview with him, so here's that story.
Cat Stevens, one of the biggest rock solo acts in history.
It's not time to make a change. Just
Songs still filling vacant spaces surrounding radios around the world. But in 1976, while on the peak of a mountainous musical career, Cat Stevens took himself out.
I was swimming and, actually I was drowning.
In an exclusive interview, this music legend tells HD News how he attained an entirely new life at the moment of near death. He was taking a break from a concert tour swimming in the ocean, but suddenly found himself in the weighted grip of a riptide. Frozen in place, tiring, the very definition of alone, and scared he was about to die.
At that moment, I called out to the only one that could hear me. That was God, And at that same moment, a wave came and pushed me forward, and suddenly I was able to swim back. That is a miracle. And some people, skeptics, may say, well, it's a coincidence, But by God, then this whole universe is a coincidence, which is impossible.
my lady d'Aubigny.
He finished the tour and simply quit the music business. To repay God for the miracle of life, Cat Stevens passed away, and a new man on a life-changing journey was born. After receiving a copy of the Quran, he converted to Islam, took the name Yusef Islam. Charity, not money, became his focus. Yet,
To be honest, I didn't empty my bank accounts all of a sudden. So I still had my money in the bank account. But I started taking another view, and that was that my sole objective was not just to make more money. It's just like, hey, I got enough to live, and I got for my family, for my parents. I'm okay. But I made my objectives perhaps reforming my own character, which a lot of people kind of leave that to the end, and they think, well, business is the most important thing, so whatever it takes, to make my life successful, I'll do it. But that's where you might sacrifice yourself in the process, and that's, I suppose, where I made the change.
he began touring the world again, but this time without a guitar, trying to save children from the ravages of war. And though Cat Stevens led a non-stop frenetic lifestyle, Yusef Islam still finds himself busier than ever.
Wow, it's busy. It's hectic. I've never been busier. I work for so many causes, but essentially humanitarian causes, as well as my own media projects and, adventures, if you like.
His old Magic Cat tour, the one interrupted by that riptide so long ago, has just been released on DVD. Yusef has a band and is going back into the studio and has begun a new children's charity called Small Kindness.
That's your fault. There's so much you have to go through.
Cat Stevens' new life is good.
If you want, you can marry.
What brings you the most joy?
Gosh, that's a big question.
I know. Family, spirituality, the journey.
I think that when hearts resonate with the same beat, that's probably the best time.
If they were right, I'd agree. But it's them they know, not me. Now there's a way, and I know.
In high definition, Dave Barker, Voom, HD News, New York.
I know I have to go.
I'd say I got an exclusive interview. I did. Yusef, or Cat Stevens, asked all the American networks. He wanted to come out. He'd found this video and music. He wanted to get out again. Wanted to go back onto television, explain it. So he asked for a one sheet from all the American networks. What I did in my one sheet, I said, don't care about your politics. And I remember saying, I'm a little pissed off at you because I was a huge fan of yours. What have you been doing for 30 years? I want to know where your heart has been and connect it to me. To what you're doing now. I remember just saying that, and he chose us, this little tiny network, to tell his story, and Newsweek magazine, so that was pretty cool. So again, remember, when you're doing interviews, find out just like storytelling, find out what kind of interviewer you are. I'm a quick one. Boom, 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 done. But if you want to go longer, you may head to 60 Minutes, those kind of magazine shows. That's really cool too, but don't talk to me about that.